there is such confidence we find in ourselves by being able to consistently bring value and provide the answer. But
Yeah.
then I realized that I was creating this environment that when I would take off on PTO or when I was a district and I would qualify for a trip or we'd have an all coordinator meeting, that all of a sudden the business fell flat. And that's because the person who was giving the answers was no longer there. I was their only source to get the answers because I had not challenged them to be able to find the answer in my absence, similar to, I would imagine, I don't have kids, but I would imagine as a parent what that's like. The mission is to raise them in a way where they don't need to come to you. They still can, but they don't need to come to you for all the answers.
Welcome back to LA Legends, where Aflac pros sharpen skills, swap stories, and build the LA South market one legend at a time. I am Michael Fisher.
And I'm Michelle Lee. Today, we're bringing back one of our most quoted guests, Morgan Gallagher. In our first conversation, Morgan, you gave us about 15 episodes worth of leadership lessons in about 30 minutes, which was amazing. And we talked about failing forward, building systems, developing successors, and creating a business that can thrive without you.
And today we want to go another level deeper. And we want to remind everybody, if you haven't listened to the first episode, go back, listen to it, or watch it on YouTube. But we want to actually do this of how do you turn those actual ideas in a way to actually lead your team each week. So Morgan, last time you told us that we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. Today, we want to unpack a little bit of what those actually look like. So welcome back, by the way, Morgan.
Thanks so much for bringing me back, especially with how winded I got on some of my answers, but honored to be back and to take it a layer deeper with much more tactical opportunities.
For sure. I was just gonna say, so we always have the data now that we can watch, like, oh, what's like the most viewed, what's the ones that are the most like re-listened to. So yeah, you are in our top 5 of everything. So good job, Morgan. So anyways, let's dive right into it though. So you are in a cool moment right now in your career where you are promoting, and I'm allowed to say this because it's going to be official by the time this is aired, but you are promoting to take over a regional sales coordinator role. So the first, congratulations, and Michelle is promoting to territory. So many things happening. This is fantastic. But since our first conversation, what leadership idea have you changed your mind about and or refined or just started applying differently? And that could be with yourself, that could be with the team that you led or the team that you will be leading.
That is such a great question and something I've certainly been thinking a lot about just during this transition period. As we all have seen, the only thing constant in this business is change, but it also allows you a moment to pause for reflection and just think about what you know in your heart is a truth. And I think that any time that you feel helpless or out of your comfort zone, which I certainly am, it is a moment for you to focus on what are your truths about leadership and what are your truths about the business. And that has been what I have been able to remain confident in. So, one of the things is how can you instill confidence in somebody else? So that was one thing that I realized is one of the most important things about leadership. That many times the best person, the smartest person, the greatest closer is often in our business the one who's promoted. But how you can spark that confidence in someone else through noticing the smallest of things and really just recognizing those to encourage them to continue to do it again. And the simplest of things allows someone also to build upon. That goes back to, like we talked about before, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to
Mm-hmm.
the level of our systems. And the system I just think about in a way is also a stepping stone and from confidence and to not look at it from the lens of what someone can't do, but what can they do that they used to not be able to do, especially in a business which feels a lot like invisible progress. So how can we recognize and bring out the progress that someone's making that somewhat feels invisible? That includes for ourselves.
So I wanted to let's dive a little bit deeper on that one. So, you moving into a regional sales coordinator role, what are some of those things that you are going to try to do early on, that will make it look, to help create some of that experience? And some of that obviously is going to be with leaders you're leading. Some of it's going to be with veterans, but a lot of them will also be for new people that are going through your entire recruiting system from A to Z. So, what can you tell us a little bit about what that secret sauce is going to look like?
Yeah. And secret, not necessarily, because it
Yeah.
is sauce that I have pulled from everybody else that I have learned from. So, the first is how can I get the calendar set? The calendar set from the fundamentals of the business, like Monday morning meetings, Friday cool downs, and then also one skill set development focus, which is right around the decision maker conversation, because it is the longest runway to build that confidence and that skill set. So, that is something that needs to remain consistent. The other consistent component that is a non negotiable that needs to be scheduled is one on one time with the people who will be the business partners, so the district sales coordinators. My one big focus, and if I am successful at this role, it's going to be that I had the chance to show and be a part of districts changing their lives. And I think that that is going to be one of my primary focuses in just being a business partner with them. So then the next, of course, is the MIPS, getting that scheduled on a monthly basis as well. And then field time. So field time, of course, getting that scheduled, knowing that I have field time with the districts, not field time necessarily with the new associates, but field time with the districts so that I can learn from them and also see uh, what areas that we can look to bring out that they do really well, and what areas do they also need support. And then the recruiting component. So how can I remain consistent in the recruiting side? One thing I'm also very excited to announce is that this one's going to be really personal to me. My mom's going to come in and be my recruiter. And
Wow.
I can't think of anybody who's going to be more invested in the success of the region than my own mom. And so this one it's really, really personal to me. And so the structure is big, but just focusing on the fundamentals and getting those calendared before the noise starts to creep in and take over from the things that I know to be important that must remain consistent as we move forward.
That's awesome.
So many keywords, right? Consistency. Regardless of your title today, consistency is the one thing that you can actually build upon and actually get stuff done. You listed a bunch of stuff there already, right? Calendaring for one-on-one conversations with your districts, MIPS, and then field time with them. But if you, it's one thing to do it once, it's another thing to actually do it again and again so they can build a relationship with that team you're going to be stepping into as well. And congrats to your mom for joining the business as well.
Thank you.
Um, so in this transition, as we've kind of already, hit on that feeling that, how do I phrase this? When time is ready, you think about it, we've been with the company, each of us, at least 10 plus years. How do you know that you were ready for that change?
Phenomenal question. So I've been in this role for 6.5 years. I've been with Aflac for almost 11 years. And I recently also have Colorado and New Mexico North has an incredible new leader, Gina. And what I realized and what I was very vulnerable with is that I gave everything to this role. I don't have anything more to give the trainer position. I've been at, like I said, 6.5 years.
Yeah.
I don't have anything more to give in this role. And so when I don't have anything more to give, I'm going to become jaded about her exciting ideas about ways to get better in the business. Or I am going to not be as big of a proponent of innovation and be as excited and look at this opportunity or look at this role the same that I always have, which is the best seat in the house, the best seat on the bus is the market trainer role, the influence, the impact that you can have. And I don't ever want to become jaded or burned out by that. But when I can't get any better, or not can't get any better, but I can't grow anymore, like I'm not as excited as I once was, the only direction that I can go is backwards. And this market, this team, and Gina deserves a better business partner than what I can give. And I told her that when she initially took the role. But also, it means that it's time for me to do something that scares me, which is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely jumping outside of my comfort zone. Would it be very easy for those of us that have found success in our role, that know it like the back of our hand, sometimes could wake up in the middle of the night and say where we can find something on One Aflac in our sleep, or have before, um, then you know it's time for a change. Because, like you said in the past, Mikey, it becomes automatic. Well, now it's time for me to expose myself, to continue to grow, to break down, to also break through in a lot of the things that I know is on the other side of this uncomfort zone, which is what's coming next. And to do it also in Chicago, which is a way even more metro than I have been up to this point. I mean, of
Mm-hmm.
course, I've been in Denver and in Houston, but not necessarily in the field while I've been in those cities. I grew up in the business in Iowa, and it's time, because the only other way, if I don't move forward, if I don't change, if I don't step outside my comfort zone, is backwards. And it takes me back to a quote. Um, it is to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. And how scary it is to sacrifice the gifts that we have within us that could be explored even further.
Start your week strong with the Monday morning meeting. Tune in for team accolades that celebrate success, contests that keep you motivated, and announcements that keep you ahead. Don't just start your Monday, own it with the Monday morning meeting.
The self-realization of where you're at, that's actually really selfless of you. The second one is, what you said, and I think a lot of leaders should take this to heart too, where I don't know if you've ever had like an associate that like, starts a business new and then they're like, you know what, let's go after this like really, really large account, or let's go after this. Oh my gosh, there's so much opportunity. And being the person that's who Gina is in this market director role now. And you're like, I actually want you to not, because you're not going to be jaded on how you feel about the DSCs or RSCs. She's going to look at it with a fresh lens. And, I've had those people that, some of them are new associates on my team that like I reluctantly were like, okay, maybe this can happen. And then actually, like, we did close a large account or something did happen because they did come into that. So I love that you're doing that. Um, what I want to do for you really quick, because, you're going to be leading DSCs and they're going to directly, and they're going to like you for like 2 months. And then like 3 months later, they're going to be like, whatever. Then it's like that, like the honeymoon period. So you talked about this and I wrote it down. You said, if someone cannot thrive in your absence, you have not developed them. How does a leader know whether they are developing people or simply rescuing them? That was our question, is how does a leader know whether they are developing or simply rescuing? So how are you going to develop versus rescue? Because you're going to be taking over a team that maybe wants to be rescued, and you're probably going to be pretty good at it. What talk to me through that little process for you, because that's about a couple months ahead of you.
It's so easy for me to answer this question because I've made the mistake so many times.
Nice.
If you have not read the book The Coaching Habit, highly recommend. It is one of the best books because it talks about yes, it's so good. It talks about creating victims. And when you're the one who always provides the answer, and especially in this trainer role, Michelle, I'm sure you can relate, there is such confidence we find in ourselves by being able to consistently bring value and provide the answer. But then I realized that I was creating this environment that when I would take off on PTO or when I was a district and I would qualify for a trip or we'd have an all coordinator meeting, that all of a sudden the business fell flat. And that's because the person who was giving the answers was no longer there. I was their only source to get the answers because I had not challenged them to be able to find the answer in my absence, similar to, I would imagine, I don't have kids, but I would imagine as a parent what that's like. The mission is to raise them in a way where they don't need to come to you. They still can, but they don't need to come to you for all the answers. And that clear difference is something that I really have to focus on. Mikey, it's so great that you asked me about this because I realize that typically in my role, my fear is I'm not bringing value. My fear is that I'm becoming complacent. My fear is that I don't have the answer. And I want to find the answer. And I encourage people to ask the questions, but to also create an environment where they know where to go to find the answer for themselves. So couple simple tactical questions to ask that I need to focus on is, what have you tried? Instead of me saying, hey, try this, do this, whatever, it is, what have you tried? To see if we can pull what's coming from within them instead of just from within me. Otherwise, we realize when we're the ones that have all the answers, we're the only ones that are growing. But in that way, we also create a ceiling and for the organization as a whole. And if you're plucked out of it, now you just lowered the ceiling entirely. So what have you tried? And then the other one is also that I'm really looking forward to, on the outside of my door, having a no complaining rule. Now, it doesn't mean that people can't come to me with frustrations and concerns. They still absolutely will, and we'll collaborate on those things. But what the no complaining rule is, which I pulled from a book called Radical Candor, another great book, is that they can't complain if they don't also come with potential solutions, because that's where you build an entrepreneur. That's where you build somebody who is also a leader themselves, and to pull from how great can they be? What is their potential instead of just what mine is? And I think that that is the most other-centered leader that you can be.
Mm-hmm. Before I want to turn it back to Michelle, but um, on the what have you tried, I love it. And I think the last time we talked about coaching habit a little bit too. And I need to actually read it instead of listening to it, so it hits different. So on the what have you tried, what are you going to do, or what do you currently do to lock in to make sure that you don't solve the problem? And so in your brain, because your brain a lot of times is like, solve it, solve it. So what do you do as a practice to make yourself say, what have you tried first?
Yeah. So typically it's all out of habit that I just want to fix the problem for somebody else. And so in the coaching habit, there's a series of 6 questions, one of which is very challenging for me to ask, which is, what is the real challenge here for you? And that allows them to pinpoint what is the biggest problem, what's the biggest priority, and then we're going to work to build and solve that together. And then it is anything else. So we go a layer deeper, knowing that the truth is often found in the second question, the next question that you ask. But allowing ourselves to focus more on the silence instead of, again, being the one that talks the most. There's something so powerful in asking a question. And one of the most tactical things that has helped me is ask a question and count to 6. Allow someone enough time to process the question and to answer it instead of the reflexive response, which we typically get in a sales environment. So I think 1 is what questions to ask. 2 is allowing yourself to sit in the silence and to pull from them. And then again, going back to for you so that they can see that this is something for them instead of for us.
Morgan, so spot on about being comfortable in silence as a leader. I think like we're so used to rescuing them that even though we ask them a question, we're just waiting for them to say a keyword so we can jump right in and give them that response as well. And just to echo something that Austin Peterson said in a previous podcast, we talked about the coaching habit as well. And yes, Michael, you should read it. It's in a day, you can get it done instead of
I
listening.
know. I feel like this is an intervention, by the way. But
You
anyways,
said the same thing on that call too. Was what can you do about it? Not what I can do to help fix it for you, but what can you do about it in that challenge? And putting it back on them because it's something as much as we can help them solve it, we want them to come to that conclusion themselves. So I love these questions. What have you tried? And sitting in silence.
Yeah.
There are two big things, 6 seconds of a rule. So let's get them more tactical. And you brought this up in our previous conversation of spending some field time, going out with these DSCs too. And what can you do to help show them the way? I'm trying to tease out some words here that we hear from AP all the time. But what can we do then when you're out in the field to make sure they're going to pick up that decision-making conversation the way you need them to?
So one of the most powerful things that one of my regional sales coordinators did as a district was he first found out that I was a previous soccer player. So then his attempt at phrasing things from leadership in the same way as soccer really helped me. So I think that finding out what is important or what's a language that someone can speak and translating what is often a complex thing into something that they understand. So for me, when I was 25 years old, him framing what skill set transfer looked like in soccer terms made it so easy for me to reference. And so he said, Morgan, would if your coach was teaching you how to play soccer, would he simply put you in a classroom, teach you the rules of the game, or sit you in front of a TV, teach you the rules of the game, and then show you how to do it, and then leave and say, see you Sunday for the game? No, that's wild. That's wild to think. And so it takes us back to something Eric Leger also taught me before, which is the 4 steps to skill set transfer. So one is teach. That's the classroom environment. Have you taught the basic components, a lot of which in our business is how to build a leads list. Sometimes we assume the easiest parts of the business, like building a leads list, is easy for someone who just came from a completely different industry. So one is the teach. So what do I need to teach in a classroom environment? Just enough, not too much, just enough based on what's called just-in-time learning. I'm not going to teach you everything, but based on just what you need to know before we go out and apply it. So that's the teach. The show is where I'm going to show you how to do it, which is also goes back to what is near and dear to my heart, which is I'm never going to ask you to do something that I'm unwilling to do. And so first I'm going to show you. I'm never going to ask you to do it first. I'm going to model it. And I'm going to show it the same way. That's the key thing. I'm not going to show it 20 different ways in 20 different times. That goes back to the falling to the systems. So I have a very specific script that either we use or they use to model and then remain consistent with it so that they can now start to build confidence and say like, oh, that seems like muscle memory. This seems like a new rep. I can do this. I want them to start to feel that way because they've seen a lot of the same things again and again and again. Then key differentiator, which is what both of you did and what the best at Aflac do, which is the watch. All too often we show them enough and then we say, you got it. And we don't stick around for the watch because it's uncomfortable or we know ourselves and we know we're going to jump in. So the watch, that is where I do 2, you do 1, I do 2, you do 1. And then it goes back to the coaching conversation of what went well. And then what's one thing that you felt could be a little bit better. And then let's work on that outside of the game film time, which is in the field. And that's what that coaching conversation looks like. But you only coach then, which is the final step, you only coach those that are open to it. And that's where it goes back to a question Austin often asks is, are you open to feedback? And if they're not,
Yeah.
it's going to go in one ear and out the other.
Exactly. Attracting and keeping the best talent means offering more than just a paycheck. Aflac Value Added Services delivers real life support for your team. Telehealth from MeMed allows employees to connect with a licensed, board certified medical or behavioral health provider by phone or video and receive personalized treatment anytime, almost anywhere. MeMD is also available as an employer paid offering. Aflac Value Added Services, because supporting your team means supporting their whole well being.
Even some of our best leaders in our organization, we've had to do a little bit of coaching on that specific one, which is when somebody is absolutely closed off. Let's make sure that they're open before we start coaching, because sometimes they just need to be heard, or they might just be a little bit pissed or something like that. And then there's a moment of time later on that we can bring that up. Um, so Morgan, I want to shift gears a little bit. So I want to go into the world of ambiguity a little bit. So we're gonna, and this is the as trainers and former trainers, we like talking about our Aflac world in a very binary way, black and white, and we love it. It's so much. It's nice that way, and it's clean and it's pretty. But sometimes it doesn't work that way. So. Um, I want to let's take an associate that maybe is about a year in the game, underperformed to their expectations for themselves. You know, they thought that they would be easy on a leadership track, but they just they haven't hit their every single bonus. They haven't stacked things the way that they wanted to. Um, what conversation would you have with them? Where would you tell them to either, reset? And also, what would you have them just like focus on over the next 30 days?
So
Loaded question. Yeah.
I love these. I love these. So because this is the reality. This is the best part of our business. So I'm thinking of one new associate in mind right now who hit super fast start fireball and then hadn't necessarily hit a couple. And I'm not thinking of one specific person. That's many of them,
Yeah.
but that are still here today. One thing I heard in another podcast that talked about one of the most important things that we have the chance to do as coaches and as leaders when approaching adults is to go back to why. We talk about Aflac as going back to why all the time, but someone is not going to be open to something new information, a new skill set, whatever it may be, until they understand the why component of it. And so going back to the why that we're learning something new, and then also going back to why we're having the conversation, which is pulling up what their initial income goals are. As a leader, I need to know those things. We talked about before knowing their why and saving it in their contact, but also their income goals. And it goes back to Mikey, for example, if you and I are having the conversation, one of the best conversations I've learned from Adam Wickman is how to have the accountability conversation. And it is, Mikey, what do you expect of yourself? What do you, in order to be as successful as you once imagined at the beginning, what do you expect from yourself as far as the timing component, as far as the work ethic, as far as the homework? What do you expect of yourself? And then the next question, which is so impactful, is what would you like my role to be? I'm not going to approach it from the perspective of this is what I'm going to tell you to do because I know better than you do. You're going to constantly be coming to me for answers. What do you expect from yourself in this opportunity? What's changed? Has anything changed? And then what would you like my role to be to support you in that? And then also it goes back to what is the one thing that will make the biggest impact on your business? If we were to change one thing that would because at that point they're well enough into the business that they know the fundamentals. So instead of me providing the answer to them, I'm going to have them unveil it just like a business owner so that because they can't argue with their own data. So it's unveiling what that looks like, but then creating a plan over the next 30 days, like that 30-day rule from fanatical prospecting. And I'm just
Yeah.
realizing in this moment that I talk in books and podcasts, as I'm sure you both do. But
Makes
the
sense.
30-day
So funny.
rule to project it based on going back to those fundamentals.
Those are solid. It's one of those as well that as you were describing that, and I was thinking of the fictional people that are not so fictional, that a lot of the times it's early on, especially somebody that hit their super fast start fireball, super fireball, triple crown, and actually just like was knocking it out of the park, and then they maybe just stalled out a little bit. Sometimes it's how naive that they were, going back to what you were talking about earlier of like, a new market director coming in or a new you moving into a regional role. But even a new associate, it's that believing in hey, if I execute against the basics, I'm going to get where I need to be. And sometimes, it's just time in the seat, too much space that ends up kind of just bringing on some stuff that doesn't really serve them in a big way. So I love the way of just bringing it back to the why, talking about the data that we actually have, and then seeing and having them come up with a plan like that. It's their plan. So these are all really good stuff. Again,
Easier said than done, though. Much easier said than done. And I had this exact conversation with a new associate who called me recently and said, I'm really struggling. I had success in the first couple of weeks. I scheduled 15 DMs. I haven't scheduled a single one since. And I was like, what's changed about your day to day since then? What is one thing that could get you back on track? And instead of, he was looking to call me for the answers. And the last thing I'll say on this, and I know we're getting short on time, but the last thing I will say on this is I look back in my career and the times that I grew the most is when someone else asked me the question instead of gave me the answer. And I just think,
mm,
why did I have the chance to have so much growth and someone believed that I could find the answer for myself, but I don't believe the same about the people that I'm leading. And that allows me to look at it a little bit differently.
ask the question.
Gold. So much
Yeah.
gold. And just those 3 questions alone of what do you expect of yourself? What would you like my role to be? And what is that one thing that would make the biggest impact? I'm going to use those, Morgan.
S-
Um,
Solid.
they're just great. Like every time we have these we've had conversations, there's just so much that you're sharing. And Michael said this at the beginning of the podcast too, that the impact you're making just by sharing those things out, as well, and giving the access to our team. Right. But so much good in it as well. You're stepping into an organization that will probably have a big group of veterans as well. And this is, I think, we're putting on a slightly different hat, where they tend to be a little bit more, arm's length away versus hungry, as a lot of new associates are. Let's say you have a veteran that believes heavily in the Aflac opportunity. They've been in the business, 15, 20 plus years. Um, they kind of feel disconnected or even overlooked a lot of the times. How would you engage with them, and what kind of responsibility and how do you step in your place today?
I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about is also just the veteran engagement. So Heidi Glob was on a district call with us with our market a long time ago, and she was talking about being a district and working alongside a veteran or a district that was not necessarily as engaged. And she went to them and said, I'm going to love you hard. I'm going to love you hard. And I think that there is so much power in doing that. And it goes back to, yes, does it sound cheesy? Of course, but it's important. And that's why it's the first step. We talk about the why with the new associates. It might not be that anymore with veterans. It's why are they still here? It's not, we talk about how their why has changed. When was the last time we reviewed what their why even is?
Yeah.
And this is, and then the final thing I would say, really from a tactical perspective, that I also learned from Adam is say you have a Monday morning meeting. We have these trainings in our territory called Elevate that are incredible. And there's a section in there about how to save time through the prep work you do prior to an enrollment. And I said, instead of going through the slide, what if you reached out to 5 veterans to personally, that's the key thing, personally, not in an email, not in a group text or a group regional meeting, to individually reach out to them by phone call and invite them to be there saying, hey, we really want to hear what you have to say for enrollment prep. If someone has the chance to speak, if someone has the opportunity to brag on themselves and the things that they do really well, they're going to show up. And so this is a great opportunity that we have to support veterans and to invite them to be a part of something bigger than themselves that creates that moment in time to be the leader that they talk about for years to come. That was the one that made them feel as such a part of something special.
Yeah, there's so many of those. I mean, I've been able to witness some really strong veteran engagement over the last year and a half, and the biggest ones, they do want to share their knowledge, because they actually have some incredible things. And the second one was just like basic recognition on just personal recognition that's free. You could just do that, and then just knowing that they're contributing to the team that actually matters, asking what their why is, because to be honest, a lot of the veterans, no one ever asked their why. They weren't asking the whys 20 years ago. So those are all really good ones, Morgan. And I just feel like there's a bunch. We should do an entire episode on that in itself, because they deserve it. And you're gonna be able to, yeah, you're gonna love on them hard. That's gonna be a fun one, and they need it. Um, Okay, Morgan, we're on rapid fire now. We already took up so much of your time. So I want to ask this one. So you're taking over a new region. So what is going to be the one book that you would like all of them to read? Read one book, one podcast that you would want them to read and or listen to.
It's crazy that you asked me this because I already sent the new districts the book. And it was also the one that I mentioned last time, which is Unreasonable Hospitality. And
Yeah.
so I know that we are all looking for ways to be even better, a little bit more unreasonable. And again, those are the things that people remember. That's in a world of technology where we're automating a lot of the routine and we're looking to humanize the experience and make it exceptional. Only those of us that make it exceptional, that lean into the human experience and that skill set, are the ones that are going to survive what happens moving forward with the tech world.
Great book. Great book. I just gave that to a new DSC in our market too, because I think it's a great way to just see it differently, but so applicable in just leadership in general. Um, that was going to be my question, Michael. So I'm going to take that off.
Ha.
I don't know if I asked this one, but I would love, because you're in general, I think, from your seat today, stress is a real thing. So if your stress could be a mascot, what would it be?
Oh, it's supposed to be rapid fire. I don't know. Um, my stress were a mascot. I don't know, like the only thing that's coming to mind is like a bear. I,
That's the
I
second
don't.
bear we've gotten.
Okay, so I have no idea why, but that's the only thing that's coming to my mind right now.
Oh man. Morgan, I just want to say thank you. And, if you're not too inundated with driving and growing your new region, I would love to get you at least one more time in a couple months. Just to even go through, it's
Thank you.
Both.
I'm going to echo what Michael was saying as well. Always such good nuggets when we have these conversations. And as much as we are both transitioning out into different roles, we are always going to be students at the end of the day. And more importantly, the goal of this conversation or what we've talked through today is building a team that just doesn't depend just on you for your energy every single day, but to build people up that they have confidence, right? As well as systems and purpose, and really create an environment where they can rely on themselves to become the best version of themselves too. So thank you guys all for joining us for another episode of the LA Legends, where motivation meets practical thinking for the next leaders in LA South. We will see you guys next time.